Hi, welcome to Salt and Burn This. I'm Sami.
And I'm Valerie.
And this is our Supernatural Rewatch podcast.
Each week, we're going to break down an episode in order with lots of details, so nothing's left out.
And we throw in some personal nuggets and stories and research to mix it up just a little bit.
Because not only are we fans of the show, but like Sam and Dean, we've also had our fill of road trips.
Yeah, but for theater, not for hunting ghosts and demons.
And not in a super sexy muscle car.
Anyway, shall we?
We shall.
Thanksgiving is past?
Huh? Sorry. I just looked up. This was really stupid. I thought it was a little dim in here, so I looked up into the light to see if there were any bulbs out. So now I can't see.
Oh, because you looked at a light?
I looked directly into the light. There is one bulb out, but the others are fine.
Oh, good. Good.
Thanksgiving has passed.
Thanksgiving has passed. It is now the time of Christmas.
I'm gonna get a tree this week.
Oh,
I'm gonna
nice.
get my tree. I'm gonna put away my Thanksgiving decorations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna put out my one Christmas decoration, and I'm gonna get a tree. Because last year I waited way too long, and I felt bad that when I finally did get the tree, I was like, I don't have time to decorate it.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this tree gave its life to sit in my, in my living room and just be like, are you going to ever decorate me?
Yeah.
And I did, but then it was like immediately I then had to undecorate it. And so I'm going to take a tree and kill it slowly.
Yeah. Do they have a lot of Christmas tree shops there? Like the stands?
They do actually. I guess because the mountains are, just right there. So
yeah,
it's
there's
easy
probably
for them
good
to
access to have a Christmas tree farm.
Truck them down. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been to any like farms, but there are a number of the stands, the pop-up stands. I remember in New York, there was one that was like just down the road from our apartment. I was like,
there's one just
great.
down the road of any apartment. Yeah, it's crazy. Like,
yeah.
Because in Kansas and most of the Midwest, there's just not a lot of like real tree stands.
Evergreens. Yeah.
I mean, they sell them at the big box stores. They sell them at Lowe's and Home Depot and stuff like that, which I forgot. But yeah, just like a nice little local, basically farm stand.
Yeah, it's the place that used to sell pumpkins, and now they're selling trees. So I like it. I'm excited. I enjoy that part of the holidays.
Yeah.
My nephews asked me like what my favorite holiday was, and I said, Christmas really stresses me out. I think I like Thanksgiving because it's, we just kind of come together and eat, and be together. But Christmas, there's just so much stress over finding the right present, not spending too much money, making sure it arrives in time, and the level of disappointment that, having younger nieces and nephews, it's like you don't want to disappoint them. You want them to have the happiest, that you didn't always have. And your parents have the expectations of the greatest Christmas ever, so there's just so much pressure.
Yeah.
So not looking forward to Christmas. I love the season. I do love the season. I'm just not looking forward to the actual Christmas.
No, I also don't like Christmas just because I've been so jaded over the so many years that I've worked in retail and or food service during Christmas time.
Oh, yes.
Because it's immediately you're just inundated with 24 hours of Christmas music, whether you like it or not.
Right. Right.
And also the people just turn into assholes around Christmas time. Entitled little assholes.
Entitled. Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking.
So it's hard for me still, even though I haven't really been in the retail world. I guess it's only been 3 or 4 years, but I'm still not ready to really just jump into Christmas spirit.
Right. Right.
And in these past few years, being with somebody who is Christmas crazy, today we just unloaded all of the bins and bins and bins of Christmas decor from the attic. I've already suffered a casualty, by the way. I think I broke my ring finger and my thumb on my left hand.
Oh my God, see? Yeah. That's called burying the lead.
Right.
Just so you know, you're supposed to present with that. Start with that. Oh my God, what happened?
I was up in the attic trying to grab stuff, and there was a big black trash bag, which usually is filled with like, stuffed animals and stuff or soft things. And I picked it up, and it was really heavy, and I like kind of fumbled, because it was heavier than you were expecting, so I lost my grip.
Right.
And it was like a circular metal stand, I think, something like really sharp edge, or at least and right. It like somehow I dropped it right on those two fingers, and
oh my God,
cursed up a storm.
Yeah,
it made me cry. It hurts so bad.
This is Dr. Valerie speaking. Did they bruise up? Do you have different color? Do you have any blood pooling around the site?
No, this one my ring finger had a gash, and it immediately swelled up. Like it was just like a nice little bump. I put ice on it right away. My thumb, there's really nothing visual that I can see. It just hurts. So now I have them until I can get a splint or two. I have them like 3 Band-Aids on each one so I can't bend them.
Keep them stiff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just when I broke my toe, it turned the most amazing colors. So that's something to look for, is the blood pooling in the at the joint where you.
I broke my pinky a few years ago. I don't remember if it turned any crazy colors, but it's like now crooked. So that's fun. Just another reason to dislike Christmas. It's okay. Damn you, Santa!
So remind me, what episode are we talking about today?
This would be number 3. In the beginning. Okay. Do you have the right notes? Did you watch the right one?
Yep. No, I'm good. I got it. I just wanted to make sure that we're doing the same thing, we are on the same page.
We have not done this one yet.
Had we sat down to do the podcast when we planned to do it, I would have not had the right episode, and you would have been like, "What the fuck?"
Well.
So, all right, season 4, episode 3.
That's the one. In the beginning. Back to the Future, Castiel sends Dean to 1973 Lawrence, Kansas, where he meets a nice young couple named John and Mary Winchester, Dean's parents. And Mary has a secret. Written by Jeremy Carver and directed by Steve Boyum.
Back to the Future, oddly enough, they only make a couple of references to Back to the Future.
When I first watched it, I expected way more Back to the Future jokes after like the first couple of them. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be, because wasn't there one that they just did?
Oh, it was pop culture, one right after the other. It was like,
it doesn't matter. There are not that many Back to the Future jokes.
So, of course, the title, I'm always going to reference the title. In the beginning, clearly it's from the Bible, the Bible. First words in Genesis, the first 4 words are in the beginning. God created heavens and earth. In the 3 words, why did I write 4? God created heavens and earth. That's 5. So I can't count. So in the beginning, the first 3 words, I'm going to actually fix that note because it's staring at me. That's all I wanted to say is it's from the Bible, and it's from the beginning of the Bible. Okay.
Yeah. So this is from the beginning of the series, at least in the recap. They show like the very, very top of the fire, get your little brother, get out of here, Mary, all that. There's also some scenes focusing on Yellow Eyes, we re-intro Cass, just in case we forgot. And the Colt comes back up.
Yeah.
And we revisit the death of Yellow Eyes.
And the God commanded it. You know, the words from Castiel to Dean. You know.
Yeah.
God
we have work
it,
for you, kind of thing.
Yeah. So there's a bit of map quest in this one. There hasn't been in a while. But at one point in time, Lawrence, Kansas, Haleyville, Kansas, which is not real. There is a Haleyville, Alabama, right next door, but there is no Haleyville, Kansas. And there's also a brief moment of Colorado in this episode. I don't know where
that's the
Colorado,
beginning,
but there's.
Oh no, that's
no, it's getting it's Dean's trip
where what's his name lives. That episode with the vampires. Yes. I think that we knew where they were, but I don't have that information in front of me.
Yeah, I just don't remember which.
Nor am I going to look it up, but.
Okay. Yeah, it's the guy who has the Colt.
Right.
In 1973.
Yes.
Is in Colorado.
Yes.
Which I'm just going to say, Dean says, I can go to Colorado and get the Colt. It's like minimum 6-hour drive from Lawrence, Kansas to the edge of Colorado.
Right. Exactly.
Cracks me up.
I know.
I'll go get it.
Could be anywhere from between 6 hours and 14 hours.
Like, yeah.
Because it takes, I've driven from Topeka, which is the similar, it's like 20 minutes away from Lawrence, to Grand Junction, Colorado, which is like all the way on the western edge.
All the way.
Yeah. And that's not counting also the north and the southern parts of Colorado, which take maybe even a little bit longer, depending on the highways and stuff that you need to take.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I was thinking on because I did just drive to Wisconsin and back for the holiday, that we never see like Sam and Dean stuck in traffic.
Right. Yeah.
You know, or go from those moments where they're like, we have to get there, and usually it's like the next thing we see is like a car driving off. We see the taillights and then room, and then they're there. We never see them just like,
yeah,
yeah, we got to get there, but it's 6 hours away. So
yeah. Or on a highway, they're always on like a back mountain road or country road.
Yes.
Never on a highway.
Never a highway. That way they don't have to, deal with accidents. And because one of the freeways I was on, all lanes were shut down because of an accident. We had to find another route. Yeah, that was not good. Things like that. That's a whole nother. That's all the B footage that we don't see on Supernatural. Is just Sam and Dean bored out of their gourds, taking those 6-hour drives to go pick up the Colt and then drive back and then get back into the action.
Side note, did you notice were there a lot of cops on the road when you went to and from Wisconsin?
Enough, no.
Oh my God.
No more than I would say usually. Wow. I did not see a lot.
Wow. Going from the city to Pennsylvania, 2 hours, loaded with cops. Like, I saw more cops that trip than any of the other trips combined that I have seen.
Wow.
It was so many cops.
I was kind of hoping for more cops because there were a ton of a-holes on the road. I mean, you're doing 75, 80 in a 70 zone, and people are still driving up on you. And not only driving up on you, but like not even waiting for you to pull out of that lane before they're like speeding past you. I'm like, really? Really? Yeah. You just wanted to take my mirror off as you go? Yes, you're a better driver than me. Okay. Yeah, I wish there were more cops, honestly.
Right.
But.
Okay, so that was our recap. In our now, we see Sam sneaking out of their motel room, the Willow Tree Motel, to meet Ruby in her own muscle car.
Yes, 1970s Mach 1 Mustang.
Oh, nice. You knew what it was.
Yeah, I did. It was just a sweet car. Yeah. I was just going to do a bit about the motel. I noticed it was kind of, I want to say it was like a 60s, 70s vibe. It wasn't like overly decorative, like hit you over the head. But on the bedside table, there was an ashtray. There was a rotary phone. I was like, wow. the phone itself, okay, but an ashtray in the motels, that's really telling about the time period.
Yeah. So Dean is sleeping. He's having nightmares when Cass pops in, says one phrase, "You have to stop it," and then presses 2 fingers to Dean's forehead, booping Dean off into another place.
A park bench.
A park bench in the middle of the day.
Bench. Yeah. That actually scared me. There was like a bit of a jump scare. Like Dean was having like nightmares, or he's having memories of hell, and when he like jolts awake and sees Castiel, and when he jolted, I jolted. I was like, oh, oh, he got me. It was scary. So Dean wakes up on a park bench with a cop saying, "Buddy, you know,
gotta get out of here." Yeah.
Gotta get out of here.
Yeah, so Dean tries to look at his cell phone. It's not working. And then he notices a diner across the street, hops in, where he sees a handsome stranger sitting at the counter.
Did you see the bench that he was sleeping on? There was an advertisement. Did you see what it was?
Yes. It was for Tab Soda. Which was the writer, Jeremy Carver's idea. By the way, there was a commentary on this. It was a really, really good commentary because it was Eric Kripke, Jeremy Carver, and maybe the director was a part of it too, but one of them didn't really. It was mostly Eric talking. He kind of like commandeered the conversation. But it was just like really good, juicy writer stuff. And if you are anyone out there, an aspiring writer, script writer, or want to work in TV, these are the good kind of commentaries you want to listen to, because they kind of give you the ins and outs of how writing something works, and like the creative process, the brainstorming process.
Very cool.
I really enjoyed it.
So, but what'd they say about the Tab Cola advertisement?
They were just like, that was like Jeremy's little idea to really pinpoint that they were in a certain time period before they solidified that they were somewhere else. Yeah, so he sees a handsome stranger, asks where he is. He is in Lawrence, Kansas. Obviously not where he was before in the hotel room.
Right. I thought it was something hit me later on in the episode that obviously Lawrence, their idea of Lawrence, Kansas is just like any town USA. But I was hoping, or I was thinking, would Dean have recognized any part of Lawrence, Kansas, even in the 70s? And probably not, because things changed so much. But there was just that kind of popped up in my head, like, would he have recognized where he was eventually?
Right.
And so yeah, in this diner, there's he's clearly having a rough time, and he looks like he's having a hard time, because the handsome stranger guy is like, "You okay? You doing okay?" Orders Dean a coffee, which, in Back to the Future, Marty ends up getting a coffee when he asks for a Diet Tab or something, or Diet Coke or something, Diet Pepsi, because it's a Pepsi.
Yeah.
So we're already jumping right into the Back to the Future essence, even if it's not flat out references. There's a Star Trek reference. Yes,
there's a Star Trek reference regarding Dean's cell phone, because the handsome stranger's like, okay, buddy. Okay. Can you use that to call the Enterprise or whatever it was?
Yeah, right, whatever. Yep.
And then he laughs at the waiter, who is dressed in total groovy hippie gear, which I guess either the writer or the director wanted everyone to be dressed like this. But they didn't have it in the budget.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the costume, he had like the fur vest, it was great.
It was very appropriate that Dean mentioned, Sonny and Cher broke up. Cool guy.
Oh.
Yeah, which
the guy
then made
so crushed.
Yeah, like, wait, what? Are you serious?
They broke up?
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's when Dean finally perks up and takes a look at his surroundings. And then he sees all the people dressed how they are dressed, in very vintage fashion. The jukebox, the lack of electronics.
The price of food on the wall.
Yeah.
Like $1.25 for burger and fries.
Yeah. And then takes a look at the handsome stranger's newspaper, which is from 1973, right when President Nixon resigned.
Nixon.
Did I say Nixon? Nixon.
You did.
President Nixon resigns.
And then a guy walks in, kind of interrupts Dean's revelry, and it's like, "Howdy, Corporal," or something. "How you doing, Corporal?"
Winchester.
And he's speaking to John.
No, he calls Winchester.
Oh, hey, Winchester.
And then they both turn around.
That's right. He says, "Hey, Winchester."
Mm-hmm.
But then he says something about, "Good to see you back, Corporal."
Yeah.
So John is just back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
And still looking quite
fresh.
Fresh. Yes. well, no, I mean like fresh, but hopeful. Like he doesn't seem to be too
right.
beaten
He's
down
not
by
like
his
the
experiences
typical.
by
Right.
the war.
Exactly.
It's bad.
It wasn't Vietnam that got to him. It was.
Right. It was the next thing. The next thing. So, and as soon as Dean realizes that it's Dad, it's like Ramblin' Man that's been playing on the jukebox kind of fades down. And like that concerning metallic music kind of fades in. And it's like, dun dun, this isn't a good thing that he's stumbled across Dad.
But also it's like, oh, what is happening?
What's happening? Yeah.
Splash.
1973 is one thing.
Yeah, Dad is another.
So after the title splash, we see John. Now we know it's John. Walking down, I guess, Main Street on his way to go run some errands, and Dean is following him. He turns a corner, and instead of seeing John, boom, there's Castiel.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, Dean's like, "Oh God," quit with the popping up. But he makes a Back to the Future reference about, would you guys get your hands on a DeLorean to send me back in time? But he mentions like time is fluid, you can bend it. But that like doesn't give Dean any solid answers. He's like, okay, so you can send me back in time, but why?
Yeah.
Like,
but then
what's going on?
But then Cass just poofs before he gets an answer. All he just says is the same thing, you have to stop it, which is the most vague instruction ever.
Right.
So Kripke did say, like, he talked about Cass's costume a little bit, like the classic
the
trench coat. And he said this was a total nod to a comic book called Hellblazer. The character is John Constantine, not related to the Keanu Reeves movie Constantine.
Okay. I wondered about that because I've seen that written before. I'm like, really?
Yeah, no, it's a different Constantine, or at least a different universe of that one. But anyway, he was a huge fan of that comic book. I'm not familiar with it, but he did say that was a huge inspiration for the show. So was I forgot the name of the book, but this one I have read. It's by Neil Gaiman. I think it's called like Good Omens. And when I did read that book, which was after the show, there are so many things that are the same. There's even a character called Crowley.
Stop. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I never really had known about like Cass's costume.
His costume's backstory.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It works 100%. So. Yep.
So anyway, John is in a car lot looking at a VW bus, which is one of my favorite cars ever. I so badly would love a VW bus, like a nice vintage one. I know they're making them new again, but I would want like a nice old rickety 60s, 70s.
I can see you driving a VW bus.
And I think they are just the most groovy cars ever.
Oh my God. We could hear you coming for miles.
Exactly. Dean comes by like a stalker, introducing himself as Dean Van Halen, which is hilarious.
That made me laugh. It made me laugh because I wasn't expecting it. Mm-hmm. I truly wasn't expecting, because he didn't have a badge in hand. He didn't have, for some reason, it just took me off guard and it made me laugh that he switched to Van Halen. So he's trying to convince John to buy the Impala, which he just happens to be sitting on.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the bus. And why would you get a VW bus over a classic, 67 Impala? And it's for the girl. The girl wants the bus.
Yes.
I thought, because Dean says something, I mean, he goes into detail about the Impala, and they kind of shop talk over what the engine is and, how cool it is. And even in 40 years, it's still going to be a super great car. And I'm like, oh, well, he's not wrong. He's not
Right.
wrong. But he said something about, my dad taught me everything I know about cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I wished for a second that they'd given John a little more car background, like talk back and forth between him and Dean, because I didn't really feel in that moment that he was the mechanic that we learned that he is.
Yeah.
My thought in that moment.
But Dean does convince him to buy the Impala instead. And then immediately goes into really creep-like talk. Like, oh, notice any weird things around here? Like electrical storms and cattle mutilations and
cold spots?
Yeah.
Sulfur.
And John's like, all right. Okay. And that's
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little too much. So I thought that was really funny until I sat and thought about it for a second. I'm like, Dean wasn't on. For a second, I thought Dean was actually looking to see if there was some sort of like demon activity or supernatural activity in the area, but he wasn't. He was trying to let John know that he's a fellow hunter. So he was trying to like nudge, nudge. I know about cold spots. Nudge, nudge. I know about these, demonic signs, these omens. But since John wasn't in this moment a hunter, Dean strikes out. He just comes across as a lunatic.
Yeah.
Pretty clever of Dean. Because again, I thought at first I thought he was just trying to see if there were some sort of omens in the area. But
I did too.
Because I figured trying to reach out to John.
Yeah, maybe it was both. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Because if he's given the instruction, you have to stop it. Maybe Dean is like, okay, then it's a demon, I got to stop a demon. Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way.
So, yeah, John's like, enough of you, bye.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
And he does end up buying the Impala. So the next thing we see is John pulling up to a house in the Impala, and a beautiful pretty blonde, comes outside and it's like, hey, where's the van?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I got this.
And
instead.
Here's where John does give his little, he basically just repeats what Dean says, but it does seem like he knew what he was talking about. Like he wasn't just like, oh, I'm just saying these words that some strange guy said to me
about us. Yeah.
Yeah, horsepower and pistons and exactly. I don't know.
Phalanges. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But they don't notice Dean pull up across the street in a Pinto. Was it a Pinto?
See, I thought maybe it was a Nova. Okay.
No, it was a Pinto. And I was like, okay, of all the cars for Dean to, accidentally find, steal, drive, why a Pinto? And because the problem with the Pintos was that they were rushed off the line and they had a tendency to explode. So that would be a minus in the category of cars is the Pinto. They happen to explode if their gas tank was hit in an accident. So kind of funny though that Dean was stuck driving a Pinto.
Yeah. See, I thought it was a Nova. Looked a little bit like a Nova to me. But that car I know because I used to live across the street from someone who like collected them. He had at least 6 at any given time Chevy Novas, like classic, in the 65, 67, 68 range Chevy Novas in his driveway of various colors.
It's very specific.
It was a very specific hobby and collective item. It was.
Oh my God.
So also, speaking of cars, this is where Kripke did say how many cars there were, how many Chevy Impalas that the show used.
Oh.
And at this point, there are 2 driving ones, like ones that they use for like the faraway driving shots, or the ones that they use to physically drive the car. There's one used as like the stationary fake driving one, when they're being dragged along with a tow truck, or they just sitting there and pretend driving and green screen stuff. And then there's a fourth one that was taken apart so the camera could go like inside of it, if they were doing like crazy inside shots with the camera, but they needed to take like the back off or the trunk out or a door off. So there are 4 Impalas being used at this point in time in the show.
It's a lot of Impalas.
It is. So anyway, John and Mary are in a diner. Dean is snooping in on them from afar. Makes a gross comment that his mom is a babe. Recognizes he's being gross. At least that's a little bit of a consolation. He's like, okay, I'm terrible.
Going to hell.
I can't be saying
again. Little cell phone there.
Yes. John and Mary are talking about her father, who seems to not like John very much, and she's just like, don't worry about it, just be yourself, I don't care what he thinks. Very typical teenage couple talk.
Young love. Yeah.
Mary excuses herself, and then the next thing we see, she is sneaking up on Dean and totally goes into attack mode. Just starts wailing on him. Yes. So not only is she a babe, but she's a badass,
including like a massive kick to the groin as well.
Yeah.
Dean does get the upper hand, literally grabs one of her hands and is like pinning her against the wall, and he sees on her wrist she's wearing a bracelet with charms, and they're like hunter charms. There's a there's a cross, there's a pentagram, and then there's something called, I had to look this up, a unicursal hexagram. And I don't know if that's what becomes the men of letters, but it definitely was. It's that
Ooh, let me look it up. I want to see what it looks like. What is it? A
unicursal. Like
wow, it's the first thing that popped up after I put UNICU. Oh yeah, that does look like.
Does that look like
kind
the
of look like the men of letters? Let me look up the men of letters thing. Yeah.
Cool.
Except with the circle around it, which at least when I just looked up the unicursal hexagram. Ooh, interesting. I didn't realize that was a real one.
Oh, that it's a real symbol?
Yeah, because isn't the supernatural thing, like the pentagram surrounded by like flamey things, that's fake, right? That's just a supernatural thing.
An artistic version, yeah.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so.
So Dean sees that Mary is wearing the hunter's charms.
Yeah, just hunters. Yeah, supernaturally type of things. And then he's like, oh my God, are you a hunter?
Are you a hunter?
Da-da-da. So the actress who played Mary, and I didn't get her name, shame on me, but she did like all of those stunts by herself. She was a ballet dancer, so she could handle all the fight choreography really, really well.
Nice.
So I just love that. Just want to give her a shout out.
Yay.
Little tiny dancer. Just like, pew, 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 I'll kick my leg up all the way in your face.
All those spin kicks and stuff. Pretty awesome. What we glossed over a little bit that John, just as Mary left the table to go outside and kick Dean's ass, John was like, but I have this engagement ring.
Yeah. Just taking a look at it, making sure it's still there, that it's safe.
Yep. He's left by himself.
Yep.
With the ring.
Yep.
So later that night, John drops Mary off, and Dean shows up after John drives away in the Impala. Dean's like, I gotta meet your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a couple of questions about some of the lineup of this.
Right.
So it sounds like, Dean never met his grandparents based on what he just said. Okay. And then later when we learn their names, it's another aha moment. And it makes me think that not only did Dean not meet his grandparents, but they weren't talked about. Like that wasn't part of their family discussions growing up.
Right.
And I just thought that was interesting. And I wondered, what story that would be. I mean, I don't think we ever learned because it's just this minute detail, but
Yeah, but you know what? They talked about that a little bit in the commentary. You know, about like this whole going back in time thing, and how did they never hear the stories about their grandparents, you know, how they died, when they died, blah blah blah. Again, the name thing, you know, and I think they were like, maybe we just have to, you know, use a little bit of imagination here, you know, because then it would have just gotten too convoluted, I think, with things, and
there's too many details
already convoluted, in my opinion. But yes,
it was. I always have my little, well, that's interesting. I don't necessarily need to know the answer, but there's in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You know, why didn't they know?
Yeah.
So
when she invites Dean in, her dad is a huge grump, as she warned him that he would be. Tries to throw him off by asking, how do you kill a vampire, with silver or with a stake to the heart? Dean, of course, knows the answer to this. Neither. You chop their head off. Hooray, he passed the test, but he still wants him out of the house.
But because he doesn't like hunters. Just because I'm a hunter doesn't mean I trust hunters. And
right. But then Mom comes in and she's like, oh, stop. You're invited to dinner. Yes. You know, I'm Deanna. Deanna or Dina?
Deanna.
Was it Deanna? It was Deanna. And that is Samuel.
Dean.
Well.
Sam. Dean. Sam. Yep.
Yeah.
Pieces falling into place.
Yes. So Deanna was Kripke's wife's name. And she has been perturbed up until this point that no characters were ever named after her. He's just like, I named the characters after the mailman, after the, you know, my dog walker. And then she's just like, why don't I get somebody? So.
Oh, well, it just so happens that it fits.
Yeah.
For Dean.
Yes.
Wow. That's pretty funny. I think I would have said that same thing. I said that to my sisters when they had kids. I'm like, what? You've named your kids after your friends, after our great grandmother. You know, where am I?
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm not there. My brother made it in. I did not. That's all right. I'm not bitter.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
Not at all.
So Dean mentions that he thought something was hunting John as to why he's in town, which earned a scoff from everybody at the table.
Yeah, like, oh, come on, sweet, innocent mechanic John.
Yeah,
no,
homeboy John.
It's not. Yeah.
So that's
which goes to play with your idea that maybe Dean was asking John about omens because he thought maybe something was following him.
Right.
Maybe.
But also kind of plays to yours, where it definitely confirms that he is not a hunter, because they're like, absolutely not. He's lame and boring. Weird. There's no way that anybody could be going after John. But Samuel does mention that there was a farmer nearby that died in mysterious ways.
Fell into a combine, which I guess is one of those like threshing, like blade spinning devices.
Yeah, the thing that, like, I think it threshes the wheat for you as it like rolls around the ground.
Dean tries to figure out how much research they've done and stuff. He's so what'd you find on the web? You know? And then he's like appalled that they would actually like mail away for information.
Yeah, they have to wait for something in the snail mail.
Snail mail.
Because that's what you had to do.
you looked for omens in the post.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. And so, you know, he's like, great, let's go together. And Sam shoots that down real quick.
Well, we don't hunt together just because you're a hunter. So the next thing we see is Granddad Sam and Mary pull up to a house. Dad is wearing a priest's collar.
Yeah.
Which is all very familiar to us.
Yes.
Loved that. So he gets out to go talk to the widow, and Mary goes off because she saw a young man, you know, by himself, and it's like, I'm going to go talk to him. You go talk to the.
There's a family business. There is a little call out to family business by old Samuel. Yep. But when Samuel comes to the door, he's greeted by not only Farmer's wife, but Father Dean, who's already there, also dressed as a priest. Which is hilarious that they both had the same idea of like, okay, this is the disguise that I'm going to go with.
I also just want to say it was nice to see Dean back in the collar, you know?
Yeah.
Dean introduces Dad as Father Cheney, which is another Dick Cheney joke. Not in this episode, but they seem to.
I also wrote down, finally, he's met someone with worse bedside manner than himself. Because as Samuel, and I don't quite remember what was going on, but it must have been something for me to write that down. Dean talking to the wife, like asking questions like, so what happened? And then she's like, oh, besides my husband getting chewed up by a big machine, nothing.
Right. Did you notice anything unusual other than my husband's innards scattered over the back? Yes. I wrote down, Grandpa doesn't quite charm the widow. No. Is what I wrote down. And Dean leaves him with that. He's like, good luck with that. Yep. So he goes off to find Mary, who's talking to Charlie, the widow's son. Mm-hmm. And he tells a story about a stranger showing up about a week ago. Charlie reveals that his dad had been beating him, and it's not a good, environment for him. And the stranger says, do you want the beatings to stop? And then they stopped.
Yeah.
So, Dean asks, he's like, well, did the guy ask for anything in return for him making the beating stop? And Charlie said, no, he didn't ask for anything.
Yeah, he just said that he'd come a knocking around 10 years in the future and ask for something done. And that's it.
Yep. And so it turns out not a crossroad demon, which is what I think Dean was thinking it was going to be. Because,
Well, I think he still thinks that it's a crossroads demon. Up until like this point, he's just like, oh, because there was a crossroads demon that tricked someone into selling their soul, right? In our first crossroads episodes, where they didn't explicitly say, give me your soul in 10 years. They were like trickily being like, oh, I'll make something happen for you. I'm just, I'll come back in like 10 years. Until Charlie says something about his eyes. And not that they were black or red, but yellow.
Yellow. Right.
Which then goes dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. That's what I wrote down. Not a crossroads demon, yellow eyes.
Yes. Just quick note about the actor who plays Samuel. Again, I didn't write any actors' names down.
Mitch Pileggi.
Thank you, Mitch. I wrote down Mitch. But Kripke desperately wanted him as a guest star. He loves him from like other things that they've worked on together.
X-Files.
He wanted him initially to be in Bad Day at Black Rock. He wanted him to be like one of the hunters or something in that show, in that episode. Didn't work out because, he's filming something else because he's, I guess, a wildly in-demand actor.
Everywhere. He's everywhere.
But thankfully it worked out because then he gets this role here.
To be the dad. Mitch Pileggi is huge. He was Skinner on the X-Files. He was Colonel Caldwell on Stargate Atlantis, Grey's Anatomy. He's currently on Walker, on Jared's Walker.
That's nice.
As his dad.
That's funny because isn't Jake Abel's on that show too, I think.
Oh, really?
I think so. I don't know as a recurring character, but I think he was on a few episodes.
Little nuggets that, people are now acting on each other's, TV shows. I know. It's fun.
It's also the nugget because in the end of this episode, it's likely that Mitch/Samuel, he's never going to return again. And so they say like, man, maybe someday we can get him on again. That would be really great. Yeah. But doubtful because he'll be so busy. It's like, oh, just you wait a few years. Just you wait. We cut back to the Campbells. Yeah. Dean is getting really fired up about Yellow Eyes. Like they telling the family, you guys need to get somewhere safe. I want you tucked away. I don't want him coming anywhere near you. Knowing what he knows. He mentions the cult, which Sam has heard about, but it is like
as a bedtime story.
Exactly, like a mystical, magical gun.
Yeah, because
But
no one's killed a demon up to this point. Like, I mean,
yeah,
that's
or
what Mitch
really
said.
has any kind of
Dad said.
Mitch,
Sorry, me, Mitch.
or really kind of dealt
like
with
this.
demons, right? Because in the scene prior, Dean recognizes it as a demon deal, but Mary is kind of like, what? I've never heard of anything like this before. So demon's not quite in the picture yet, or at least
no one's heard of a demon with
no
one's heard of a demon with yellow eyes. Yeah, and no one's killed a demon.
Right.
And that's why Dean's like, I can do it. I just need the cult,
Yes.
And then it's like the fairy tale cult. All right, now you really are crazy.
Yeah. Pulls out Dad's journal just to kind of prove himself. So it's like, no, I know that this demon means business because look, in my dad's journal, he writes about this incident. Samuel notices that was 2 days ago. You've been here for 2,
Yeah.
How would he know about this?
My dad could see the future,
yes.
Right? Doesn't he say that?
Yeah.
But Dean also admits, though, that one of the reasons he has to do this is that his mom was killed by the yellow-eyed demon, or a yellow-eyed demon.
Yeah.
I just say putting that out in the universe in front of, and Mary wasn't in the room, was she? It was just him and Dad, because Mary was off listening to records.
Yeah, she's off in the other room, but they don't know who they are yet, or who Dean is.
No, I know.
I
was just thinking for Dean to admit that to his grandfather is a big deal.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I would say.
Yeah. But they think he's crazy, so
yes.
So I'm like, all right, go on, have fun.
Yeah, go.
Dean hops over into the other room to say goodbye to Mary, and then starts kind of asking her questions about John, because he kind of wants to know what his dad was like when he was younger.
And he's everything a hunter isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, he's hopeful, he's joyful, he's nice, he's caring. Mary says she wants to get out of hunting, and that's what, and she doesn't want to raise her. If she has kids, because she wants to have kids, she would never raise them as hunters. It's the last thing she would want.
Yeah.
And it's the worst thing that could actually happen is having kids raised as hunters. So my question in this moment is for me about John. If John found out about Mary being a hunter and not wanting to be a hunter anymore, why does he then raise the boys as hunters? I mean, against Mary's, express wishes.
Well,
you know what I mean? I mean, obviously circumstances, I don't know. I just feel like
he did
go
not
against her wishes.
If I'm remembering correctly, I may not be, but in season 1, when they go back to Lawrence and there's, the poltergeist in the house, and Mary comes back, as a ghost and, sacrifices herself. They don't know at this point what it is. The yellow eyes thing. That's not in their purview. And then they go around and they interview the town. And it sounded like to me that John was not aware of any of that, because he used to work at the shop. And then they said once that fire happened, John went crazy and started talking about like all of this occult stuff, and then started to go to Missouri, the psychic. And I think she kind of put 2 and 2 together. It was always my understanding that John was not aware of the occult or the supernatural until after Mary died.
Okay. So he wouldn't have known Mary's wishes, that she didn't want her kids raised as hunters.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just going to cross that one.
I could be wrong, but I do feel like there's an episode much, much later on that does kind of establish that. It's another time traveling nonsense, but anyhow.
It's easy for me to latch on to certain, details that I listen to in the current episode and forget that, it was actually, the story already exists and I've forgotten about but I was so hurt in that moment when I thought about it. I'm like, oh, she didn't want it and he did it anyway. How selfish of him. No, he didn't know. He didn't know. I think. So before he leaves, he makes her make a crazy promise to not get out of bed on November 3rd, 1983. No matter what you hear.
Yeah.
don't get out of bed. So question again.
Okay.
So he's trying to prevent her from having the run-in with Yellow Eyes.
Yeah.
Right? So on the day that she dies, didn't all the other children's mothers, all the other yellow-eyed psychic special children, didn't their mothers all die in fires?
No.
No?
No, they mention it in one of the Roadhouse scenes where they did establish that pattern for like 2 or 3 of them. But then there was like another thing that broke the pattern where the mother was still alive.
Because I was like, she's going to die on the ceiling in flames anyway, whether she confronts Yellow Eyes in the nursery or not, because I thought that all the mothers died except for like
there were like 2 or 3 that did. Or was it Max? Didn't his mom die of something else? No, his mom is still alive. Still... Or was that his aunt? Oh, fuck.
Well, I do know that there was one. I know that there was one mother who lived, but I thought that everybody else's, their connection is how they found out, like the day they were born and the death of their
mothers. I don't think so. I think they broke that pattern. I think.
There you go. Check that off my list. So later that night,
yeah.
After Dean has said, "Please don't get out of bed," we see car lights as usual, but instead of seeing like the Impala that we're used to seeing, it's Dean in the Pinto driving, and poof, Castiel shows up again and scares the crap out of Dean. Reveals that Dean needs to do this on his own. Because Dean's like, a little help here. What's going on? Why am I still doing this? And Castiel's like, you've got to do this on your own. And by the way, Sam isn't looking for you. It's not like, because Dean was concerned that, aren't you concerned
like, why
that
isn't Sam here? Because he'd want in on this too. This is a brother quest. And
and don't you think that, he needs to see what's going on? And, aren't you afraid that he's just tearing up, future time looking for me? And Castiel's like, he's not looking for you.
Yeah.
And that could mean 2 things. One, that as time is fluid, that Sam doesn't even, like, this is just a blink of an eye type of thing.
Right.
Or that Sam, as we know, walked out of the room and is off doing, Ruby stuff.
Doesn't
Ruby.
Realize that Dean is gone. So anyway, Cass does point out, it's like, okay, if you follow through on killing the demon and breaking the family curse, as Dean phrased it, then all of the people that they have saved, in their whole life, they die. Or at least they're not saved by the Winchesters.
Right. Well, he does say everyone you save dies. I mean, he says, if you change the future, everyone you save
they might possibly
dies.
Not get saved. Because it could be, another hunter may be able to get to them, if the timeline doesn't work out. But, Dean, I think it weighs on him. It's like, I did think about it, actually, but my priority right now are my parents, and family. I need to save them.
Yeah.
And then poof, Cass is gone again.
Poof, gone. Dean now has a very lonely drive to Colorado.
Yep.
Where he steals the Colt from Daniel Elkins, who catches him in the act.
Of course he did, because he's a hunter.
Right. But Dean convinces him. He's like, I just got to do this thing. The Colt gets back to you. Don't worry about it.
Sorry, I did not buy this whatsoever. I did not buy that a hunter of Elkin's expertise who keeps his gun locked up in a safe, the Colt, he knows what that gun is. I do not buy that he just let a stranger walk away with it. Be like, I'm just going to borrow it for a couple of days. You can come get it in Lawrence when I'm done.
Right. And I'm going to take your limited bullets too. You know?
Yeah. That was totally for this, the movement of the story, I know, but it was just like, really?
Yeah, maybe he looked into Dean's eyes and saw that he was.
But then the writer guys did have to say it was important that Elkin was a part of the scene so he could then get the gun, know where to get the gun to bring it back. So then it was back in Colorado by the time the boys get it for the vampires, and then it comes into their possession. So I understand, but it was like there's no other way you could have done this.
Yeah. A little quick and dirty. Yeah.
Yep. So back at the Campbells, Mary and Samuel are having a daddy-daughter bonding moment of cleaning their weapons.
As Sam and Dean do all the time. Yep. Their dinner table activities.
Yes.
Cleaning weapons.
And Samuel, is going on about like crazy Dean's prophecies, and you mentioned something about the Walshes, which are going to happen in the future, in a couple of days, which that catches Mary's attention because, like, Lydia Walsh is a friend of mine.
I know the Walshes, yeah, because she's the next on the list, and we got to go.
Yep,
we're gonna go do this.
Yep,
and I hated this moment. It's funny sometimes, but I hated this moment. I mean, dads being confused over their daughters, love that. I love that. Keep the air of mystery around daughters, okay? Yep. But don't chisel it down to it's her time of the month, and therefore she's potentially irrational, illogical, and changes, with the breeze. I hate that stereotype that women are controlled by their
But I do
menses.
feel like that would have been an appropriate or a typical comment made in the 70s by the father of the household. Yes. And I did appreciate Deanna's nonverbal response to it.
I could actually hear her eyes rolling. Yes. And it's like, part of me is like, dude, you said it about your daughter to your wife. What are you?
I know.
Go on.
Right. And she's like, that doesn't even warrant a response. I'm
gonna walk away and let you try to figure it out on your own, mister.
That was pretty
little
perfect.
Mister.
Yeah.
Yep.
So at Liddy's Walsh's, a doctor is telling her that her father's cancer has gotten worse and he's probably not going to survive, but he happens to know a cure. And all he needs is to come back in 10 years and ask for something then.
Liddy's like, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what? How does that work? And of course, the light changes and we see yellow eyes. Like, we see the doctor's eyes turn yellow. It's yellow eyes. It's not in the body we know. And just then, Samuel bursts in with a shotgun. Samuel shoots the doctor in the chest, shoots Yellow Eyes in the chest. Yellow Eyes, in return, doesn't die and mind blasts Samuel across the room against the wall.
Yep.
And so now he's pinned to the wall, and he says, "Son of a bitch." Which I'm like, now we know where Dean gets it. Even if he didn't know, he came by it honestly. The demon then starts to go after Samuel. And as he's doing the monologuing and talking up onto Samuel, Mary shows up and sneaks up behind the Yellow Eyes. Of course, Yellow Eyes senses her, and just before she's able to like stab him, she does get a good slash in because she's Mary and she's tenacious and she's a ballet dancer.
Yes.
She slashes him, he knocks the knife away, and she is able to make an awesome uppercut. Like, she doesn't have the knife, but she just balls up her fists and just boom, clocks Yellow Eyes, and then goes in for her classic crotch kick, and unfortunately he grabs her and stops her, so now she is being held by Yellow Eyes.
Yes. And he is liking this feisty chick.
Yeah. Disgusting.
Yeah. And just as he has a hold of her, Dean shows up with the Colt.
Which Yellow Eyes recognizes.
Yes.
He's like,
and then
where'd you get that gun?
Yeah, smokes out of the guy before Dean can make a shot. Unfortunately, which is bad news for everyone that he's on the run, disappeared, invisible. Did you notice? I did not until I heard the commentary, but the doctor's name was Doc Brown.
Oh, it was Dr. Brown. That connection.
Yes,
Doc
which
Brown
was a purposeful nod to Doc Brown. Yes.
Oh God, when did she must? Lydia
she said
must have
Dr.
said
Brown. It's like, what's wrong with him, Dr. Brown? It was very, very quick.
Okay, I didn't catch it. So Doc Brown. So thank you. No, I didn't catch that.
So Dean and Samuel are alone, and Dean's kind of pushed into a corner where he needs to now come clean about who he is, what's going on, even if it sounds crazy, because not only is he kind of out of lies to tell, but now Mary has recognized that Demon has his eye on me. He said that he liked me. What
does that mean?
What does that mean? Can't mean anything good.
Yep.
So Dean does say, listen, I'm Mary's son, which means I'm your grandson, and this yellow-eyed demon is going to kill her on November 3rd, 1983, and we need to kill him before that date happens. And after very little convincing, Samuel kind of accepts it. You know, he does say, like, oh, okay, you're wackadoodle, but...
He's like, are you a psychic? Which I found interesting that he's asking Dean if he's a psychic. I felt like Dean could have been like, I'm not, but my brother is. Your other grandson. I like that he said today was the day that Yellow Eyes caught her scent.
Yeah.
Which is very animalistic and haunting at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And meanwhile, Mary runs to John's arms outside, who has shown up, and she says, let's run away. Let's go. We're out.
You said you would take me away. And he's like, of course, I'll take you away. Sam, now Sam and Dean. No, not Sam and Dean. Yeah, Samuel and Dean.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is Samuel and Dean. Are game planning. They're trying to, figure out how they're gonna do this. And Samuel seems a little too interested in the cult, and even does the whole, here, let me hold it.
Yeah. We see him doing the little shifty eyes, from the cult.
Yeah.
From the cult to
Dean. Dean doesn't see that.
No. But he does kind of get it together quickly, before like, you know what, I think just me.
I'm just gonna,
it's my responsibility. I don't like anybody else to hold it. And that is just too tempting for old Yellow Eyes, who then just shows up and he's, possessed Samuel. Mind blast Dean to the gun, to the wall, out of the reach of the gun, and begins a monologue.
Yep.
I like that Kripke made fun. He makes fun of himself a lot in this commentary for like the very typical play-by-plays that they do.
The monologuing, yeah.
The monologue, it's like there was so much monologuing here, but it was necessary, and it's so hard to get right, so it doesn't feel like a monologue, and sometimes it just does. Yeah. He made fun of a shot earlier where even before I listened to the commentary, I was like, that was kind of a dumb shot. It was when Mary and Dean are talking to the kid. He says something, they walk away for like 2 feet and say like, oh, it's a demon deal. And then they walk back.
And they go back. This kid just pimped his soul to a demon.
Yeah. Let's walk like 2 feet back. Like you didn't hear that. But this one, he was like, you could totally make a drinking game of every time Sam and Dean lose their weapon. Or like the weapon gets knocked out of their hands. It's like, okay, someone's in trouble. Gosh. They lose their weapon. The second brother comes in to save their life with that gun, and then that weapon gets lost. Or picks up the dropped weapon and then destroys the bad guy. He's just like, this is totally a formula, and sorry.
Yeah, sorry, it works.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
So in Yellow Eyes' monologue, he admits he's not looking for souls, but he's looking for children. And he's going to build a hybrid army out of the best bred humans, such as young little Mary. And then he explains what he does to the children when he's there, which Sam has known because he saw the vision or whatever when he went back in time. Yeah. Dean is not been aware of it up until this point.
Yeah, he says, I'm going to drip my demon blood into their little mouths.
Yeah.
Better than Ovaltine or something. It's vitamins, minerals. Ugh, disgusting.
It's kind of gross. And then he kind of senses that Dean is not one of his special children, but maybe he's got a sibling. Younger sister or a bro. Oh boy. And while he's doing all of this talking, Deanna is lurking around the corner, hoping that she isn't spotted. making her way towards the dropped weapon.
Yeah. Yep. Before she gets to it, we hear that, Deep Yellow Eyes is, everyone's saying, what's your end game? Not everyone, but, Dean's like, what? You're just going to build your own little army? And Yellow Eyes is like, nope, I've got something bigger in mind. It's not just about my little master race. And he mentioned something about needing permission, and I didn't know what that meant.
He needs permission to enter their house. So it was very a vampire thing. So that's why he makes a deal later. We see him make the deal with Mary.
Permission.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, to enter the house.
It was just too weird. I was like, that's a vampire thing. So I was like,
it's definitely a vampire thing.
Connection. Okay.
But, at some point then Dean, I think maybe to buy some time for Deanna, or just to rub it in Yellow Eyes' face, he does say, like, I kill you. I'm the one that kills you, so you don't get to finish your big plan, mister.
Yep. Look in my eyes, you son of a bitch. Son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch. But Yellow Eyes is an even bigger asshole than we can imagine. Takes his knife and stabs himself.
To kill Samuel. Yeah. And of course, Deanna sees this and gasps, and still is now like scrambling to get the Colt, but she's alerted Yellow Eyes to her presence.
Yeah.
And he runs into the kitchen and snaps her neck.
Yeah.
Well, he throws her across the room and then snaps her neck.
Yeah. He doesn't run, he casually walks into the kitchen while she's trying to crawl away and snaps her neck. And that was what was really not scary, but twisted about it. He's just like, do, crack.
Yep. It means nothing.
Yeah.
So he's now killed both Samuel and Deanna.
Yeah.
Dean's able to break free from the mind blast, grabs the Colt, but Yellow Eyes is gone.
Yeah. Strange that he did not grab the gun before he left, but meaning Yellow Eyes, that would have been, that would have been my move. There. It was like, crack her neck and then grab the gun and go,
Right, and go. Kill Dean and go.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Mary is necking with John in the car, parked on a cliffside, as one does.
At that elevated train platform that I love so much. I love it. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
Are they making out? I thought she was like just
I don't know. I just wrote necking. I could have just been. Because
I thought it was like this. They just drove and they finally just said, "Okay, stop. We need to talk," type of thing.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know, because he is about to ask the question. So
yes,
they were at least in a loving kind of
space.
Okay. Right. So I don't think that he would pop the question at a time of, distress. Well, maybe he would. But in any case, Yellow Samuel appears angrily at the window and drags them both out. And once John comes out, breaks his neck too.
Yeah. John tries to come to the rescue. He's like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Snap.
Yeah.
And just out of nowhere.
Holy shit.
And Mary says, "You son of a bitch."
Yes. Yeah. She is in shock. She's in shock. Yellow Eyes reveals who he is, reveals that her parents are gone too, shows her his own
the knife wound.
Yeah, it's like, I killed your dad too.
Yeah. Son of a bitch.
And this is when he starts to make his deal.
Disgusting to watch this scene.
Yeah.
To watch the scene.
It truly was.
Yellow Eyes in her father's body.
Yeah. So he starts to make his deal to bring John back. Only John, as everybody else is too much of the deal.
Yep.
As long as he has, as you mentioned before, permission to swing by her house in 10 years and to not be interrupted. Don't interrupt me. Just leave me do my business and everything and everyone will be fine.
Yep.
And cut to Dean driving up just in time to see Mary making out with her father. Just seal the deal.
Seal the deal. Gross.
Gross.
The
studio thought that was gross too. By the way, the studio was like, really? Do we really need this? And they both were like, yeah, we need it.
Yeah, we need it.
No.
I wrote down like one of my questions was like how hard it must have been for the actors, for like Mitch Pileggi, who is this, older, more seasoned actor, to have to, internalize what's actually happening there.
Yeah.
It's just, it must have been very difficult. But that's acting.
Yeah.
Job well done, because we were grossed out by it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Dean shows up just at that time. Yellow Eyes escapes before Dean can make the shot.
Again.
Samuel drops dead. Mary looks sad and shameful. But then John comes back to life. She looks back. Cass has already appeared and, done his 2-finger Jedi mind trick. And
Dean is gone.
Dean away.
Before Cass touches Dean, takes him away, he appears and touches Dean on the shoulder, and kind of pulls Dean away from the scene that he's just
maybe
witnessed.
It was that. I think I projected him like touching him with the 2 fingers, because that is what he does a lot.
He does. It was just very tender. It was like this. You've seen enough.
Yeah,
we need to go now. And I just felt I was like, well, that was actually kind of nice. Dean is crushed, but yeah, anyway, that's all. I just thought it was a nice moment of the first thing you see is Castiel's hand.
Yeah.
And a small look of sympathy.
Dean wakes back up in the motel room with Cass sitting on the bed, and Dean is ashamed that he didn't complete the mission of stopping anything. And then Cass reveals, oh, you couldn't have stopped it anyway, because, that's destiny.
Destiny can't be changed. Yeah.
So what the hell was that all about?
Why? Why did you put me all through that? And Castiel says it's because you needed to learn the truth. And now you know everything that we know.
Yeah.
And that's when Dean kind of looks around the room and notices Sam's gone.
Yeah.
Sam's not in the room with them.
Yep.
Is this when we learned Yellow Eyes' name, or did we learn that earlier?
I don't know, but he does say Azazel.
Yeah.
I can't remember if Azazel was mentioned before or not.
Because it's been Yellow Eyes this whole time, and then suddenly Castiel says, now we...
Well, maybe Casey in the Sin City one, maybe she mentions his name.
Azazel. Okay. Because I feel like it's something we've mentioned before, but I don't know if it's...
I know. You know what? We'll circle back to that in the next episode when I have that notebook on me. And maybe I can search back through my notes and see.
Okay.
But in any case, he does mention it here. He knows that Azazel, turned kids into special children, but not why. So now everybody knows why. Sam is headed down a dangerous road, and if you don't stop it, Dean, we will. Here is where he is now. Get to it. To be continued.
To be continued. I was like, no. To be continued.
Yeah.
This is still the beginning of Castiel, and it's bringing me back to why you really root for Castiel. So I'm glad we're rewatching this to get back to the root of Castiel.
Right.
This episode was, it had its funny moments, but I think it had a lot of heartbreak for Dean. He just got to meet his grandparents, and I think that they actually would have ended up working together and being a family together had it not been for Yellow Eyes and the stabbing and the neck breaking and stuff like that. Right. And so it's like families. Dean had his family and then was taken away again. Yeah. He got to experience something that Sam doesn't get to experience.
Yeah.
Meeting.
Yeah. Well, they did say Jared was in Hawaii during the filming of this episode, so he needed a journey for Dean to do alone. Because Sam is only in the opening bit, the teaser.
That's amazing that I didn't even note that.
I didn't either until they mentioned it. Until they mentioned it. I was like, oh yeah, Sam wasn't, he's mentioned a lot, you know?
Yeah, but this was all Jensen.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, it's like, what did Jared break or injure on his
No, I think he was just in Hawaii. I don't even think he was shooting anything. I think
no, I know, but even on vacation,
maybe they even just like sent him off to Hawaii. He was just like, just go.
Get you off set.
Yeah. So a few notes about, you know, from the commentary on their end. They really wanted to show Mary's family and her backstory in season 3, but the writer's strike, you know, screwed it up amongst, you know, a lot of things that it screwed up. But it worked out for the best because they knew they would have to send them back in time, and they didn't have a vehicle at that time, right, to do time travel. And so now when they've introduced angels, they're like, oh, we have this all powerful thing that can just, you know, bend time and move and swish, 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 which is cool. Except I'm not a physicist by any stretch of the imagination, but time travel things really bother me because it usually doesn't make sense because there's a paradox. And in here, my paradox was, okay, it's a time loop, and it's a never-ending time loop where this always has happened in the history of their life. So when Dean goes back in time, he convinces his father to buy the Impala, then that becomes canon, right? So then it has always been Dean in the past going back and then convincing his dad to buy the Impala. And it bothers me that, is this all Dean's fault? Or more, I should say, Cass's fault that Yellow Eyes caught the scent of Mary, because he probably wouldn't have met Mary had Dean not come into the picture and been like, oh, he's going to be over at this person's house that you know in 2 days, and we have to kill it. Well, Samuel would have never learned that. Samuel would have never told Mary that, who would have been like, that's my friend, we have to go and stop it, and then never would have never would have died.
Right. She would have just been like, here's your guns, I'm gonna go stop being a hunter.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's a first time for a loop to start, you know, like if you're drawing a circle, you got to start somewhere.
But then the history would have changed. Like then, you know, that's a whole other leg.
So yes, it's all Castiel's fault.
It is. It is. And Kripke even mentioned this too, and I'm so happy because like, oh, thank God, I'm not crazy and I'm not like overthinking it, because Kripke was also like, this really bothered me, and even Dean had mentioned, or Jensen had said like, wait, does this mean that I was the one that you know that found the Impala? And you know, kind of went on and on and on about like all of this paradox talk, and you know, this would happen over and over and over again. And Bob Singer said, wait, you have no problems with demons and angels and like all of this stuff, but going back in time is the thing that needs to be realistic.
Well, you know, as you mentioned, you know, just because if Dean didn't save the people that had he not become a hunter and saved his parents and his grandparents, the people that he died, the people that he saved may not have died because there may have been another hunter. John may have gone back and bought the Impala. You know, he may have been like, Mary, you can have the van. I'm going to go buy that muscle car I saw. So that's one of those, it still could have happened without Dean, as far as the Impala goes. But I think the introduction of Mary to Yellow Eyes that's something that you can't explain or undo in a different way.
Right.
You know, unless she tripped and fell into the house, you know, where, you know, her friend was getting bad news about
he met her many years later. Yeah. No, because it was all happened at the same time, right? Because every kid was 10 years later. Like all the kids were the same age. I think that was like the one pattern that they fit. They were all 26 and a half or something. But then that kind of circles back to your original question. Does that mean that they never knew their grandparents? Well, if this has always been the history, then yes, they died at this moment in time. before they were even born, before they were even married, Mary and John. So,
but so therefore Dean wouldn't have known them. Oh God, let's stop. Let's just stop. Let's just...
Okay, so the next episode, which you have already seen.
And many times, actually.
Yes. What's it called?
Many times. Metamorphosis.
Oh.
Metamorphosis.
I know this one.
And as a warning, don't watch this wearing earbuds.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have a thing with sounds, unless you like ASMR, this might really be your jam, but not mine.
No. Even if it were, I don't think this is an episode that, never mind. We'll find out next time.
Yes.
Why Valerie said not to wear AirPods or earbuds or headphones.
All right. So thank you all for tuning in. Please follow us, subscribe to us anywhere that you can find podcasts. Please also rate us on Apple Podcasts. Puts us up, just a smidgen above all the other indie podcasts out there. It would be most appreciated. Yes, exactly. You can find us on social media. We are at Salt and Burn This everywhere. We're also on YouTube. You can listen to us there. And you can watch the little sound waves move up and down. Sometimes it's a little bit relaxing to look at. And we will see you next week for Metamorphosis. Bye.
Bye.